Okay, it's trash day, but it's also windy. You know what happens next. Recycling strewn all over your block. Milk cartons and Amazon boxes and random cans of soup tumbling around on the curb or sidewalk. Yo, what's up with how we pick up trash or how we don't in our city? Why do windy recycling days make our streets look so gross? And isn't there some sort of better way to keep our streets clean? Our guest, Nick Esposito, who once served as the city's zero waste and litter director, tells us how we can be doing all of this better. It's Monday, January 12th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and we're talking trash. Your block has its weekly or now twice weekly trash pickup. You wake up in the morning, the trash is picked up, but the block still looks like a mess. What are you seeing in Philly streets, Nick?
So two things when it comes to trash day. The first is how people put their trash out. And there's varying degrees on how you're going to do it, whether you're a single family house or you're a multi-unit. You know, that's a pretty common thing in neighborhoods now. South Philly, my neighborhood, and like Fishtown, East Kensington, what used to be a single family home now being 3 units, right? So you have 3 different or different groups of people creating trash. And a lot of times landlords aren't providing trash cans as they should for proper trash storage. So people are just putting out, you know, that's the old cliche, like the Wawa bags. And when they, you know, used to have more plastic bags in the city, like tied up, or even just, you know, a bag that's not in a can.
Or like a Trader Joe's bag.
And then you see that with the recycling, right? So with starting with waste, I mean, a lot of times how we're putting our trash out in these bags, squirrels rip it open, and then all of a sudden it's just fair game and it just starts flying all over the place. You brought up the bigger thing with recycling bins. So if you're lucky enough to have a recycling bin, if you knew where to get one, they don't have lids. They're these little small things that were maybe in some design, like for our kitchens or small spaces that you can put them in. But when they go outside without a lid on a windy day, like things are going to fly all over. And then the Trader Joe's bag phenomenon for the people that either don't have a recycling bin or have too much that it won't fill that smaller bin. All of a sudden it's all over the place. So yeah, that's the top line. What you're seeing is we have a very outdated, archaic way that we put our trash out in Philadelphia. And it's my hypothesis that is where a lot of the litter that you see in neighborhoods comes from. Okay,
Nick, you are like the expert in this. You've worked in the city department before. You know trash. So what is the solution?
Yeah, I mean, the solution is for the city to have 2 things, in my opinion. For the less dense areas, having lidded cans, right? And having more mechanical pickups that you can, be able to, as you see kind of in like the suburbs, right? So it's a little bit more order to this. The other piece, though, when it gets into a denser neighborhood, like, again, I already talked about Fishtown or South Philly, it's really hard as a truck has to stop at every row house to pick up a container and do that, especially on a one-way street. It would drive people mad. So I would like to see what they're already experimenting with a lot more in New York, and then you see it all over in Europe, is more containerized trash storage. That's more communal places where people can bring their waste in a denser area where it's one pickup point, which would, again, streamline operations for the sanitation department and would just be a much better and more kind of orderly way to dispose of our waste and our recycling in a city.
Now, I want to remind you, last year in the summer, we kind of had to do that because of the trash strike. And dumpsters got filled pretty quickly when the city put dumpsters like in a location on a block. And there was so much trash piling around it. So is this really a practical solution?
So to that point, it's a fair point to make. But the counterpoint I would make to that is that was a knee-jerk reaction that the city had to a crisis of their own making, right? So they have this sanitation, and all of the different departments go on strike. And then they just reacted and said, let's put these here. I mean, I don't even think the placement of it had any strategy to it, let alone how it was executed. So given a lot more planning and a lot more strategy, as I said, you see this already happening in New York with containerized trash storage that they're doing, especially in commercial areas. If you've ever spent time in New York, I remember the first time I saw this in Manhattan, I was like, this is crazy. The way that they do their trash is they just put bags out. I remember walking past the Whole Foods in Flatiron, and I'm just like 60 black trash bags out on the street. I'm like, this is how they handle this. I remember walking down Broadway. I wasn't there too long ago, and there's trash all over the place. So as they're starting, they see the need. Once again, in Europe, I'll use an example. I've used this before when I've given these interviews, is the city of Milan in Italy. I'm a proud Italian, so my bias, I'm going to throw my bias right now. But I toured through there, and they have the same population as Philadelphia, give or take, about 1.5, 1.6 million people. While Philadelphia picks up from about 635,000 front doors. That's every row house and every little block the trash truck has to stop on. Milan, again, they have a different infrastructure. They have a lot more kind of apartment complexes and things like that, but they have it down to about 50,000 pickup points that they have. So it's a lot more manageable. And they do that in areas where, and I've seen them, they have dumpsters that are smart dumpsters. People have like a key fob that they wave in front of it. It opens up that you can put things in and then locks when it closes. Imagine if we had those in certain areas where it made sense, right? If we utilize vacant lots to do it. You go to Rotterdam or Amsterdam. This is a big thing. And I know people have talked about this. I'll give a shout out to, Terrell Hagler, your fave trash man. He's brought this up a lot, is underground containerized storage. So you go to the blocks in the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and it just looks like a trash can. And there's a key fob that opens the lid and you can put your trash in. But when that trash, it goes down a chute into a huge container that can store a lot of trash. And when the truck comes by, it has this big hook that hooks the thing out of the ground and then empties the trash. So I know listeners might be listening to this and thinking like, oh, that'll never happen in Philly, pie in the sky. But it's like, why? Why not? Why? It's happening in other parts of the world. And, I think these are solutions that we should explore here.
Okay, let's get back to the litter that happens on these like windy days, which you kind of describe as like an Armageddon. What's the solution there?
First off, can I just say, like, what's the deal with these windy days? Like, is Philly getting windier? Like, that's the data I want to see.
I was like, Nick, do you want me to like turn off the wind?
I'm like, no, but seriously, I'm like, this is real. I mean, just like the Eagles season alone, how much is affected. I mean, there's a lot of factors that are affecting the Eagles right now, but my goodness.
Don't break my heart now.
But the wind. Who knows? Maybe we're getting windier. I don't know. That's something that would be really interesting from like a weather perspective but those are interesting things, right? These are things that you don't think about when you're creating waste policy, that it could get windier in Philly and then, it could happen. But I mean, the thing about Philly, which is so like, I think kind of vexing to some people is, in a lot of cities, you go to their downtowns and you'll see litter because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic. You go to a commercial corridor. Now, a lot of times they have systems set up and, people that they pay to clean up, but you go into the neighborhoods in other cities and they're clean. But I feel like we have the reverse. I mean, we have pretty clean commercial corridors a lot of the time, I'm sure people are listening and be like, no, not mine, but I think that is. But then you get into a neighborhood where it's pretty residential. Maybe there's a corner store somewhere around, but there's so much litter. So how does that make sense? And again, my hypothesis is that how we put our trash out, and especially when it's windy, you don't have a lid on a recycling bin, things are going to get everywhere. So, I make the joke of, if I go down the street and I see a gallon milk container, a laundry detergent bottle, and a magazine, it's like someone wasn't walking to the laundromat with their magazine they were going to read, chugging a gallon of milk, and then said, oh, I'm just going to litter this here, right? Like, that's not what happened. That came out of someone's recycling bin. And as I, studied litter and I was in these neighborhoods, and the things that we would see a lot on the ground are things that would appear to come out of recycling bins or come out of trash containers. Mm-hmm. So I've been making this case where I wish there was, the funding available for the studies to be made to really understand this, because it could really unlock the needs. And, we did a little of this when I was Zero Waste and Litter Director, trying to make the case for lidded recycling bins as we did our litter studies.
I don't know if you need to study this. Like, we know it, right? Like, the trash cans that we have suck.
Yeah.
Like,
if you have one.
I don't even know where the top of my trash can lid is. I've lost it months ago. What I would love to have, the trash can where it's like the lid is connected to it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And I was actually thinking about this the other day as I was walking home and I was thinking about this interview and knowing I was going to do it, I was thinking the logistics of it, right? Like, we put these bins out, and the ideal is, like, I have a lidded one. I have a little side area that I can keep this bin, and then I unlock my gate and I wheel it out to the thing. And, again, I don't want to say this to disparage the sanitation workers because their job is super hard. They're understaffed. They're like going from door to door. It's back. I've been on recycling and trash routes. It's backbreaking. So when they pick up your container and then they, dump it and they just kind of like, I came home and mine was thrown on its side in the street. Right? Like it's just a recipe for it to get broken and then I have to go buy a new one. And then the more that you have to buy, the cheaper you're going to get and it's going to get worse and worse. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. That's why, I bring up in denser areas where it's one-way streets, a lot of parking, like these more containerized trash storage things. But I think at the very least, if we had lids on our bins and that was something that had to happen in the city, that would solve a lot of the issues that we're seeing around litter.
But would that make it difficult for our trash workers in any way? Like that's like those types of trash cans are bigger and maybe a little heavier. Yeah,
I mean, that's definitely consideration. That's why having, the if you go to a lot of places, not Philadelphia, and they have the machine that the sanitation worker wheels it out, connects it to a hook and then, or an arm, and the arm grabs it and picks it up and dumps it and puts it back down flat. Nice. Like you still have a sanitation worker working. That's another consideration with the union. They're like, oh, if you do stuff like this, you're going to have less workers. And I'm like, you're not going to have less need for workers. You need somebody to like take again, maybe that's the good thing about having the one-way street in the parking, right? Someone has to get the bin, wheel it out in the street, get the arm. It's just a matter of, waiting on that one-way street behind the truck as it's doing this thing. But I don't know. That'd be an interesting poll to take with Philadelphians. Would you rather wait a little longer behind a trash truck on a one-way street and have a clean city? Or would you rather just get through really quick and have the trucks running as fast as possible and have a littered city? That's an interesting thing.
Are we responsible of picking up trash when we see it?
As a resident, when you're just walking down the street? Yeah, I mean, I think if you see it.
If I see that LaCroix can, should I pick it up?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's like you have the best intention to do that, but then you're stuck with this can and you're like, now where do I put it? So unless you're home and you're like, okay, I do it all the time. I see like a can. Actually, I manage a trash can on the corner of my block so people have a place to put their dog poop.
Ugh, that's a whole nother issue.
But if you have a place to take it and pick it up, sure, go for it.
What do you mean when you manage a trash can on your block?
So this was something that I'd seen in the city a bunch, that neighborhood groups were just taking it upon themselves to do it. The most, my favorite example was the Fishtown Neighbors Association. They created these like fish head trash cans and they fundraised for them and they put them around the city. And we took that example, and when I was Zero Waste and Litter Director, and we created, and again, I've said this before, it was probably ill-named. It was one of my branding fails in my time. I haven't had many of them, but that was one. That was calling it community cans, because it made people think, oh, community members are doing it. I am a community member doing this, but it was really intended for businesses that are supposed to have trash cans. So there's a law in the Philly books that if you sell prepared or packaged food, which is a whole array of businesses, a corner store to a cafe, you have to have a trash can out front. So this was a way to kind of like get more trash cans. So the neighborhood, was fundraising for them because the business owners are responsible for doing it themselves and paying for it. So the neighborhood association was using some of their funding to work with businesses and put these trash cans out. I put one out. My wife and I and my community manage Emerald Street Community Farm. So Emerald Street Community Farm is the entity that manages this trash can outside of the farm. So yeah, that can's out there, and I'm the sucker who gets up at 6 a.m. and empties a big, heavy bag of mostly dog poop. That's the life I lead. It's the life I chose, Trinae.
Right. What about the time of day? Like, so you mentioned that one-way streets and, you're getting stuck behind the trash truck. Do you propose or have ideas on what time of day or night should trash be picked up?
I don't know if this is because of the interview. I just think about this stuff all the time, but I actually just thought about this today because I was...
Nick, you think about this all the time.
All right. It's not you, it's me. That's what you're saying. It's not me, it's you. Yeah, I was actually taking my kids to school today. I was driving them in, and I was going down York Street and I saw a trash truck, and I was like, please don't be stopping to pick up the dumpster. Please don't be stopping to pick up the dumpster at this big building where I know they have a dumpster. Because I was running a little late, and I was thinking to myself, why in the world is it 7:45 during rush hour and they are going down the street? Like, why aren't they doing this at 5 a.m? And from my, experience of being in the city, there are a very vocal group of people, especially in trying to call them out, but in Center City, I'm just going to say it, that do not want to have trash trucks running that early in the morning. And they're very vocal about it and got the city to change its policy that do not allow trash trucks to pick up before 6 a.m. I think that's the time frame. And then after 9 p.m. or something like that. Ideally, you would want to do this. And a lot, again, other cities, Milan, Italy, to even New York, right? They would do this stuff overnight because that is the least amount of traffic. Again, even for the workers, they can get more routes done when there's nobody out on the road. So it would make a lot more sense. And, there's people, again, it's the Philly poll. Do you want to make the accommodations to not have your sleep disrupted and trying to figure out to have a cleaner city? Or do you want to not have a trash truck, maybe making some clanking noise, emptying a dumpster at 4 a.m. and have a littered city? I mean, these are the kind of things that we have to talk about.
All right, let's keep talking about this after the break. PA Preferred makes it easy to choose local and support the farmers who grow and make the food and products we rely on every day. And the variety is honestly incredible. Pennsylvania isn't just dairy and sweet corn. We're the #1 mushroom-producing state in the country. We've got apples, hops, honey, maple syrup, flowers, and even fibers from alpacas and sheep. If you want to find PA Preferred products near you, start at papreferred.com. You can search for farms, farmers markets, and local producers in your neighborhood. And with the 2026 Pennsylvania Farm Show coming up in January, it's the perfect time to explore everything our agriculture community has to offer. Choose local, choose PA Preferred. Visit papreferred.com. That's papreferred.com. Paid for with Pennsylvania tax dollars. All right. Explain to me the responsibility of landlords in our city in terms of making sure their tenants have a recycling can and a trash can.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I mean, that's in the code when you have and proper trash storage, right? So it's not just about having the can, but where do you put the can? So I know in a lot of new construction, I was part of my neighborhood association. Anybody who's been to a zoning meeting knows, it's about parking, like how many parking spaces, what's going to happen about parking? And then also, which I was happy to start seeing more and more, is trash rooms. Like for multi-units, people doing these things, you have to have a trash room. Again, there's a harder phenomenon when was a single family home. Now it's multifamily. They are still responsible for an adequate place to store containers that people can put their trash in and get it out to the curb. And again, it's a matter of enforcement. It's, are we going to really hold, I'm a landlord and my tenants, provided a trash can and a recycling bin for them when they moved in, and they have an area in the back of their house where they can keep the trash. And that's my job as a landlord to do that. And I think sometimes, it gets a little tricky with people when they're, especially landlords, what they think the tenant's responsible for and what they're responsible for. And you can write a lease any which way you want. And people are, we have an affordability crisis. So you get a pretty good deal on a place. You don't want to make waves. And you're just like, I'll just deal with having to buy my own trash can and deal with it. Or I'll just put stuff out in loose bags and Trader Joe's bags and go about my business.
Nick, is it against the law to chain your trash can to your house?
I don't think it's against the law to chain your trash can to your house, but I do believe it's still a right-of-way issue, because I remember from my times, my wonky times in city government, where to keep your trash container outside. So you're in a row house, you don't want to put it in the backyard and wheel this thing through if you're using a container, or even just drag a thing through your house. A lot of people would be like, let me put it outside. There was a program that the sanitation department tried to pilot back in 2017 or 18. It was based off of a very successful Baltimore program. They called it Fill a Can, where they worked with blocks to have the blocks say, it's okay that we put our cans outside. You can chain them up so nobody steals them. And then you just wheel it out to the front of your house when you need to. Again, I'm lucky that I have a little side area next to my house where that's where I keep my trash. And then come trash day and recycling, I just drag everything out. But as far as I understand still from the code, you are not legally allowed to do that. And I also the Fill a Can program just kind of floundered and went away, and it's not doing anything right now.
All right. We talked a lot about the things that aren't working for the city, some issues that, still linger, may not get solved overnight. But under Mayor Parker's administration, the city has had this citywide cleaning program where city workers have gone out. They've cleaned graffiti up. They've removed stuff that people just dump on the streets. There's been these smaller trash groups with brooms and air blowers. There's also the twice weekly trash pickup that's expanded into North Philadelphia now. So has Philly gotten any cleaner in the last couple of years under the Parker administration? And Nick, how can you measure cleanliness?
Yeah, so that's a great, that your last point is the point, right? Because you don't know what you don't count, right? So it's just, I don't see any data coming out or data that is being collected on if this is actually working. And, I was thinking about this through this interview is, I know you said this earlier, do we need another study to do this? And I know that's a big refrain, but I think continued studies and then continued data metrics on what is actually working and what's not is super important. Like every major company is constantly doing this. Your service providers, whether your cell phone, your internet, your email, right? They're constantly watching your usage, seeing how things are working, getting feedback to improve it, to keep you using the phone, right? Or using the email service. And then continuing to monitor if those things are working or not. And the city just doesn't think like that. So what we base ourselves on is confirmation bias, right? And that's where this whole perception that littering comes from people. And that's a confirmation bias in my opinion, because yes, when you see someone litter, it is really stark. But I will ask the listeners, ask yourselves, how many times have you seen someone litter compared to how much litter is all around Philadelphia, right? It can't just be people throwing things on the ground. There have to be systemic issues like the one we're talking about today, not having lidded trash cans. Now, I think the Parker administration suffers from its own confirmation bias a lot. These things are working. We know they're working. Hey, everybody, we're going to tell you they're working, and that's just the end of it. And that's not a good way to create city policy or sustain city programs, in my opinion. So I think that we really do need to study these things better, think about the systemic issues, and then not just clean things up and then say, look, everybody, the city's getting cleaner. Just trust us. Anyone who points their head out the door could look and say, I don't think the city's getting cleaner. I think the people that are vocal about some of the support I've seen are just happy to see that she's doing something, because the last 4 years of the Kenny administration were such a disaster and there was such little getting done. They see, people are out, they're sweeping things up over and over. But my concern when we really run the numbers on this is a very, very expensive Band-Aid that we cannot sustain. And we're going to be right back to square one with less resources if they don't start actually understanding the systemic issues and addressing them.
So I want to bring this up. In early November of 2025, the city came out with some numbers. And we're going back to the how can you measure cleanliness? The fall edition of the One Philly United Cities citywide cleanup program, which kicked off November 3rd of 2025, and it's going to run until January 30th of this year, a 13-week period. They calculated some numbers for a cleanup that happened in 2024, and they've got more than 50,000 blocks were cleaned. 21,000 plus vacant lots were cleaned, and 13,000 plus instances of graffiti were removed. Are those good numbers?
They're numbers. It's like the old Homer Simpson quote, you can use statistics to prove anything. 60% of all people know that. It's they've cleaned up a lot of things, but there's two things that I'll call out on that. The first one is, how fast did those lots get dirty again? So you cleaned all those lots. There's 42,000 vacant lots in the city, so you didn't even clean all of them. If you cleaned it once, and that's going to only happen in a quarter or a season, and it's dirty the next week, what was it worth? It was clean for a week, and now we got to wait.
But are all vacant lots dirty?
That's a good question, right? And so that knowing what your priorities are. Again, I wish that we did this. I helped develop the digital citywide litter index that we were using that really told you and showed the numbers. It was on a website called Clean PHL. You can verify it and vet it. The administration doesn't do anything like that. They just put these reports out with these numbers that are kind of flawed. And the other thing I was going to say is, again, I'll ask any of your listeners to think through their own businesses, but Trinae, I'm going to use you as an example. So sorry about it.
Okay.
As an example. So imagine if, you guys have sponsors, I'm sure, for CityCast, or you have funding or stuff like that. So could you go to your funders and just be like, hey, awesome. We did amazing this year. We did 52 shows like once a week, or how many shows? 365 shows. Every day we put a show out. We're great. They were awesome. They all were 30 minutes long and they had this many guests on them. Like, your sponsors might be like, okay, cool. I'm glad you did all those things. But like, how many people listen to it? And if you're like, well, and it's like, not a lot. Of course, that's not the case. I'm sure the CityCast numbers,
not going
watch the CityCast numbers, especially this episode, because it's so amazing. People are going to be listening to through the roof. But you guys see where I'm getting at with that, right? It's like the city's just coming out and being like, we did all these things. But like, what are the actual outcomes? Like, if anybody who works anywhere, whether you're in the private sector or non-private sector, like things like KPIs, right? Key performance indicators, like what is the key performance? So just because you went out and cleaned all these things up, if they're dirty a week later, right? What does it really making a difference? Or are you just spending a lot of money and putting on a show? And I think that's where we have to ask these questions. And then also the transparency of the data. It is really hard to find quality data that the city puts out right now. And my hunch is they don't, because the data might not say great things about it. And that was a big thing when I was in city government. I was pretty bullish on, we're going to collect data, we're going to publicly put it out, we're going to learn from it, and we're going to be vulnerable about it. And, I think Mayor Parker has a very interesting knack of being able to show vulnerability on her terms, which is really interesting how she does it. And she's kind of masterful at that. So you're kind of like, oh, you tell me if I'm not doing a bad job, or I'm doing a bad job. Like, I'm open to these things, but then you don't have anything to base it on, because like, how could I say if you're doing a bad job or not, aside from me just looking out my door and being like, the lot across the street from my house right now is filthy. And there was a young guy, God love him. He was there last weekend cleaning up. And I remember he walks his dog. He's a nice younger guy that I see on my block, just moved in. And I'm like, thank you for doing that, dude. Because the neighbors across the street, myself, we've been doing it for, almost 20 years that I've been here, and they've been here for 50, right? So I'm glad you're here doing it. Thank you, because we're tired. And the lot is trashed again. So that's what I'm seeing. So, you run the risk of, when you don't put real numbers out and show it, that people are just basically subjectively looking at what they see. And at least what I see, and maybe your listeners agree, is a pretty dirty city.
I went to the Philadelphia Citizens Ideas We Should Steal Festival. Love the festival. They just invite like really smart people around the country solving issues that we're talking about. And there was like a campaign up in New York City over trash. And it was really interesting. They used like social media campaigns. They used art installations. Does Philly need something like that? Do we need like more murals to like talk about trash? Do we need some of our, city influencers to talk about like how to be better stewards of our trash?
Yes, but once we have the clean conditions, right? Like, that's the thing that I think is that's where it lacks and falls flat. Like, you can spend all this money on a campaign, but if the city's dirty, I got back to like, again, behavioral science, confirmation bias. Another big thing around behavioral science, this has been proven out in a lot of studies, and it holds pretty true, is litter begets litter, right? So if you already have a littered space because there's an area where trash is being knocked over and it's all over the place, because of how we put our trash out on trash day, like what we've been talking about, you're going to see more people litter in those areas. So that's where you start to see the litter start to pile up from the individuals who litter. Or if it's just a way that everybody puts their trash out, we all put our stuff out in Trader Joe's bags because that's the normalized behavior here. Everyone does it. And then it leads to dirty conditions, right? So until you fix the systemic problems, doing those campaigns don't work. It's like, you'd say it's like a chicken or the egg thing, but it's not. I think we know where it comes from. You're not going to be able to like convince people to not do something when they don't have a solution for the right thing to do that's actually going to lead to what the conditions are. I think litter happens in a myriad of ways, from someone throwing something on the ground to how, we put our recycling out and without a lid on a windy day. So until you fix that larger one, like I said, I think those campaigns just fall a little flat and just seem performative. And I think it almost claps back on you a little worse, because it makes people get more disengaged. Be like, we have systemic problems, and the city's just telling me to like cheerlead about how, we should not litter. Like, I know we shouldn't litter. I just wish that, our trash got picked up in a better way.
Nick Esposito, thank you for coming back to the show and talking trash.
I always got a hot take on trash, so thanks for let me get hot takes on.
Yes, you do. Where can people follow up with you?
So people can follow up with me on LinkedIn. I'm always over LinkedIn and posting different stuff, whether it's about some of the work that I'm doing in my career with my company or just, cool organizations that are doing things. I do talk some trash on LinkedIn, maybe not as much as I used to, but I still do it. Just find me on LinkedIn, say hi, and, slide into my DMs if you want to talk about trash.
I love it. Thank you, Nick. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. If you enjoyed this episode, please share this with a friend. Also, rate the show, leave us a review, and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. And don't forget, you can support our show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Philly neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.